Shalom again, brethren. I'm sharing another lesson study with you, and a lot of the information that is shared in this lesson study was researched online. So if there's any further information that can be shared, please do WhatsApp me, email me, or even send a comment on the YouTube. 2 Timothy chapter 2 verse 16 says, all scripture is given by inspiration of Elohim and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness. So, the topic of this shared lesson study will be called, What is Baal Peor worship? Just before Israel was to enter into the promised land, where we read in Numbers chapter 25 verse 1 to verse 3, we see that they were joined to Baal. Numbers 25 verse 1 to verse 3 reads, and Israel abode in Shittim, and the people began to commit whoredom with the daughters of Moab. And they called the people unto the sacrifices of their gods. And the people did eat, and bowed down to their gods. And Israel joined himself unto Baal Peor, and the anger of Yahuwah was kindled against Israel. We also read in Revelation chapter 2 verse 14, but I have a few things against thee, because thou hast there them that hold the doctrine of Balaam, who taught Balak to cast a stumbling block before the children of Israel, to eat things sacrificed unto idols, and to commit fornication. Baal Peor devotees relish every opening of the human body for sexual gratification, despite the purposes that Yahuwah made those openings for. Baal Peor was the god of anal and oral sex, a perversion that involved men, women, children, and animals. I will now further go into this lesson study in as much detail as I can. Although Balaam could not curse Israel, he did counsel Balak on how he could get the upper hand on Israel, because Balaam wanted to receive the rewards of Balak. Balaam wanted to receive the rewards that Balak was offering. I know that the question that may be lingering in some of your minds is, well, what does eating has to do with fornication? Well, when we understand the rituals done to Baal Peor, we will understand this statement. The worship of Baal Peor involves the most perverted acts between the temple prostitutes and Baal Peor's devotees, all done for financial gain, for monetary profit. The rituals specifically designed to debase the devotees involves the exposure of the prostitute's genitalia and their direct oral exchange of body fluids and waste products. In these rituals, the prostitutes assume a dominatrix donor role, and the men the submissive receptors role. The rituals establish the power of the feminine over the masculine. It works to invert the normative Hebrew social structure from patriarchal to matriarchal, and the arrestment of the development of the man in the stage of irresponsible boys, or to the stage of irresponsible boys, instead of maturing them into men of principle. So one might be asking now, what was the stumbling block that Balaam offered to Balak? It was the worship of Baal Peor. After Balaam departed from Moab, we see the ramifications of his instruction as Israel joined itself to Baal Peor. As we would have read, Numbers chapter 25 verse 1 to verse 3, it reads, "And Israel abode in Shittim, and the people spake, and the people began to commit whoredom with the daughters of Moab. And they called the people unto the sacrifices of their gods. And the people did eat and bowed down to their gods. And Israel joined himself unto Baal Peor. And the anger of Yahuwah was kindled against Israel." As we see here in Numbers chapter 25 verse 2, it says, "And they called the people unto the sacrifices of their gods, and the people did eat and bowed down to their gods." Because of this very act, Israel was judged by a plague that killed 24,000. We can read this in Numbers 31 verse 16. It reads, "Behold, these caused the children of Israel through the counsel of Balaam to commit trespass against Yahuwah in the matter of Peor, and there was a plague among the congregation of Yahuwah." Also, when we read Joshua chapter 13 verse 22, it reads, "Balaam also, the son of Beor, the soothsayer, did the children of Israel slay with the sword among them that was slain by them." Israel did this because they realized what Baal Peor worship was. They realized what Balaam did as a result of the worship that caused Israel to go astray. When we read 2 Peter chapter 2, and I believe it's verse 15, it reads, "Which have forsaken the right way, and are gone astray, following the way of Balaam, the son of Beor, who loved the wages of unrighteousness." And again, if we read Jude chapter 1, well, there's only one chapter, so if we read Jude verse 11, it says, "Woe unto them, for they have gone in the way of Cain, and ran greedily after the error of Balaam for reward, and perished in the gainsaying of Korah." We can also see Yahuwah's perspective on this whole issue when we read Hosea chapter 9, I believe it's Hosea chapter 9 verse 10. "I found Israel like grapes in the wilderness. I saw your fathers as the first ripe in the fig tree at her first time. But they went to Baal Peor and separated themselves unto that shame, and their abominations were according as they loved." See, the Most High gives his perspective on the whole Baal Peor issue here, when we read in Hosea chapter 9 verse 10. When we look up the meaning of the word Baal Peor, it literally means Lord of the open hole. I want you to remember that regardless of the purpose of which Yahuwah designed the parts of the body, Baal Peor's devotees relish every opening for sexual gratification, making him the god of anal and oral sex. The practice of its perversion involves men, women, and even children and animals. This is what Baal Peor worship is. The worship of Baal Peor exists today, and it is being pushed in our primary schools to our children, unbeknownst to us as parents. Brethren, I would have sent you a video that was done by the YouTube channel Thought Provoking that shows what they're trying to teach the children, our children, in the schools. This is the worship of Baal Peor. The worship of Baal Peor is highly gratified and magnified in the porn industry, but not only in the porn industry. It is also perpetrated in the entertainment industry with songs from artists like Florida. Some of our children are singing these songs and they don't even understand what they're singing. They don't even know what they're singing. Some of us adults are singing these songs and we are not even clear as to what the song really is about. Yes, we may know when he says, "You make my head go around when you go down," we may understand what it is. But there's a deeper spiritual connotation behind it. It is the gratification. It is the worship of Baal Peor. Look at Madonna. Look at Lady Gaga. And this is just to name a few. So brethren, we need to be on guard with everything that is presented to our children and to us in the entertainment industry and in the so-called news industry. All these industries are controlled by the adversary. Brethren, I will leave you with this one scripture verse to ponder and to internalize. So now, brethren, before I present to you 1 Corinthians 15 verse 33, I want you to ponder what is being mentioned in this shared lesson study, because I'm sure that many of us who would have endeavored or delved in porn and also delved into music would recognize that we ourselves, some of us, would have been caught up in these very acts. If not all of the same acts, some of the very acts. So we need to examine ourselves to see whether we are in the faith, because we are in the time where sin is being called good, evil is being called good, and good is being called evil. 1 Corinthians chapter 15 verse 33 reads, "Be not deceived." I'll reiterate it again. Be not deceived. Evil communications corrupt good manners. Verse 34 says, "Awake to righteousness and sin not, for some have not the knowledge of Elohim." I speak this to your shame, brethren. The night is far spent. Shalom.